Hello, all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, I'm your host, Hyde. This is Hide and Seek Media, where we talk about news, sports, politics, and so much more. What is a woman? In today's day and age, you really don't know. Definitions are constantly changing of what a woman is, what a man is. The trans world has gotten everybody so scared to even define what a woman is or what a man is that when you ask the question, nobody can seem to give you an answer, or at least a straight answer. Um, it's usually, oh, a woman is a person who identifies as a woman, but nobody can say what that is. So conservative radio host Matt Walsh decided to do a documentary on what is a woman. And he goes around to a lot of different doctors, both who are gender affirming doctors, and then those who don't see the trans world like the small minority of doctors that do. And it's a very interesting documentary. I want to say that at the very beginning. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, there is going to be some clips. I may drop a spoiler here or there. So be prepared. But before we get into the review of this movie, here at Hide and Seek Media, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get common sense, logic, and a little bit of conspiracy out there for you people to think about and open the minds to what is going on in the world around us today. Now, if you like the work I'm doing here and you want to help support the channel, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I list crypto wallets in the description down below that you can donate to. I have my own merch link that you can go pick you out funny political t-shirts and hoodies. I have a locals community that you can go join. It's free to join that, but if you want to have access to all the articles I write and content that I only put on locals, you have to become a premium member. So go over to locals, get that membership, $2.99 a month. You won't even notice it's there. But really, the best way you can help this channel is by smashing that like button and sharing this video on all social media platforms. Those two interactions alone will tell YouTube's algorithm that my video needs more impressions, and that will help me get more views. That's what I need to grow my channel, so that's really what I need you guys to do. So if you want to help me out, smash that like button and share this video. But now let's get to the review of what is a woman. But getting into Matt Walsh to start off, if you don't know who he is, he's part of the Daily Wire family, and he went viral not too long ago for a speech he gave in front of the Loudoun County District, or the Loudoun County School District, about a case of a 15-year-old boy who had been sexually assaulting girls in locker rooms and bathrooms or whatever, and it happened at two different schools before the school district decided to do something about it. And so I believe this was an issue because the boy identified as trans and was using girls' bathrooms. Now, I believe that's the case. I'm not 100% accurate. It could be a girls' locker room, but I know it was one of those two situations. So feel free to correct me in the comments down below. But he goes up and he gives this amazing speech about how dangerous this ideology is.
Tried to muzzle me by not allowing me to speak. And when that didn't work, they tried to muzzle me with a mask.
I would thank you all for allowing me to speak to you tonight, but you tried not to allow it, yet here I am. Now, you only give us 60 seconds, so let me get to the point. You are all child abusers. You prey upon impressionable children and indoctrinate them into your insane ideological cult, a cult which holds many fanatical views, but none so deranged as the idea that boys are girls and girls are boys. By imposing this vile nonsense on students to the point even of forcing young girls to share locker rooms with boys, you deprive these kids of safety and privacy and something more fundamental too, which is truth. If education is not grounded in truth, then it is worthless. Worse, it is poison. You are poison. You are predators. I can see why you try to stop us from speaking. You know that your ideas are indefensible. You silence the opposing side because you have no argument. You can only hide under your beds like pathetic little gutless cowards hoping we shut up and go away, but we won't. I promise you that.
And what that really did was it started to wake up a lot of parents as to what is being taught to their kids through social media, through schools, through this new gender identity ideology. So Matt Walsh decided he had to ask this question and he was going to get an answer. So he decided to go to a wide variety of people, both on the side of gender identity affirmation and then those who consider gender identity ideology to be more of a mental sickness called gender dysphoria, I believe is the name of it. So in the beginning, the first part of this movie is just Matt going and interviewing all of these different gender affirmation type doctors. Like the first one he talks to is a family therapist who can't define a woman because they're not a woman, even though they say they were assigned female at birth.
The minute I was assigned female, I was told, okay, these are the kind of clothing that you're going to wear. These are the kind of the type of play that you're going to engage in as a child, the path that maybe your life will take because of social expectations.
Mom who gave birth to me is a woman. Mm-hmm. And my wife is a woman, though I haven't asked her. Maybe I should. But if they're all women, and also the boy who sits down with you and says, I think I'm a girl, actually is one, then what is a woman?
Yeah. Great question. I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Now, I'm trying to be very careful here and using the right pronoun they instead of she, he, because I couldn't tell. Sounded like a girl, acted like a girl, but said she wasn't a woman. Now, in this crazy land of gender ideology, I'm supposed to believe whatever a person tells me they are because that's what they tell me, at least according to one of the professors that Matt interviewed.
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you their gender is. I'm not so sure what social interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness.
Then Matt makes a very good point about people can lie and people can make things up just for attention. And so if, he makes the point, if I say I'm a black man, would you be inclined to believe it? And then this professor then turns around and asks him a question instead of giving him an answer, right? He goes, well, are you a black man? Are you African American?
For example, if I were to say that I'm a black man, would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you black? Are you African American? Are you biracial?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, you don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Okay, so that's my point. I could make a statement about who I am that's incorrect.
And it's like, does that matter? Right? Because now you're asking a question about whether he really is African American or not. It doesn't matter, right? That doesn't matter according to your ideology, as long as he feels like he is an African American. As long as he believes he is an African American, then he can identify as an African American. That's the premise behind gender ideology, is that as long as I feel like a woman and I say I'm a woman, then I am a woman. And that isn't how it works. And that's what he tries to convey in that interview. But that professor, he gets triggered by Matt saying, I just want to get to the truth.
I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth. Again, in social life,
why is that uncomfortable?
because that it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're gonna stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you,
how is the word truth condescending and rude?
why don't you tell me what your truth is? And you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
What my truth is? Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth.
You know, and he's like, well, that sounds transphobic to me. And then, you know, it's like, well, how the hell I don't understand how truth can be transphobic. And, you know, or even saying that I want to get to the truth is transphobic. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that is their go-to, right? That's how all of this works. As soon as they get questioned and they get cornered in a debate or an argument where they have no grounds and they have no footing and they know it, then they turn around and just call you transphobic or racist or whatever the case may be, right? They just start hurling names at you because they have no argument. One of the great things about this movie was not only was it very well put together, right? The guys over at Daily Wire, and I have to give them mad props because since I have been a subscriber, the stuff that I've been able to watch on Daily Wire is top notch. Those guys over there are doing it right. And for all of us out here who are trying to even remotely get close to what they are doing, we have a long way to go. So I will say that this movie was very well put together. But he goes on, you know, to interview this Dr. Marcy Bowers at one point in this movie. And she's the most world-renowned, prominent surgeon for these vaginoplasties, right? She's done over like 2,000 of them or something like that. And she's the one who, you know, did the 16-year-old. So in this interview, Matt asks her if she's ever heard of trans-able people. These are people who believe that their fully abled body isn't the way it should be.
Heard of people in the trans-abled community. These are people who are physically able-bodied but feel like they should be disabled or identify as such. For example, a man who has 2 arms but feels like he should have 1. If a man in this kind of marginalized community went to the doctor and said, I want to have my arm cut off.
And so, like, for instance, I'm completely able, both arms move and work, but in my soul and in my mind and in my gut and everything about my being tells me that I shouldn't have my left arm. Like, it shouldn't be there. And for most of the time, I try to not even use it because I feel like it's an awkward extension of me that doesn't belong there. And so he asks, if I were a person like this and walked into a doctor's office and asked to get my arm removed, would the doctor do it? And she's like, no, that's, in her words, kooky.
That doesn't have anything to do with gender identity.
Well, it's someone's self-identity, how someone identifies.
That's someone who has and I'll accept it as a mental diagnosis, a psychiatric condition. I don't even pretend to know what aptomenophilia is all about, but somehow it's the idea that you're fascinated or charmed by having a limb or part of a limb missing. Okay, I would say that's, pardon my non-medical language, kooky.
And I was like, okay. So then, Matt goes, well, you don't see, how these are basically he's asking, do you see how these are the same? And she's like, no, I don't see how those are relevant at all. I was like, she's like, that's a mental disorder. And this is, gender identity. And I'm like, well, it's, according to some, it's a mental disorder. And there's a part when Matt mentions the people who don't agree with her in this, in her way of thinking, and the look on her face.
The critics on the other side of this,
She looked like, what? There are people who don't agree with me? There can't be that many people that don't agree with me in this world and day and age. And if they are, they're dinosaurs, according to her. And it was like, really? How out of touch are these people, right?
There aren't many, but go ahead.
there aren't many who would disagree with what you're saying about.
Well, the dinosaurs of the world are certainly out there.
So after that interview, he goes on to interview a pediatrician, Dr. Forcier, I believe. And, her career has been in Planned Parenthood, apparently. So she isn't about helping kids at all, really. If you spend 20 years working at Planned Parenthood, you're not about helping kids, because Planned Parenthood is not about helping kids. Planned Parenthood is about eliminating kids or doing this kind of stuff to kids. That's why they have these gender affirmation care, people like this Forcier person. But she goes on to tell Matt that she believes that infants and toddlers can figure out their gender identity, that they can have some kind of awareness of their gender at an infant age.
Justice.
So you've done a lot of work in this field. Could you just start by telling us,
Sure.
at what age can a child first begin to transition into another gender or identify themselves as a gender different from how they were born?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender.
And it's like, I'm raising a toddler right now, and I can tell you she has no idea about the difference between boys and girls. None whatsoever. I'm watching it firsthand, so I know. This woman is a little off her rocker. She has lost the plot, as they say, right? But it gets worse. So he then tries to use a Santa Claus metaphor. Okay, so what if a 4-year-old believes in Santa Claus?
You ever met a 4-year-old who believes in Santa Claus?
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone who believes that a fat man is traveling through the sky on a flying reindeer at lightning speed, coming down his chimney with presents.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is someone who maybe has a tenuous grasp on reality?
They have an appropriate 4-year-old handle on the
Sure.
reality
Agreed.
that's very real for them.
Agreed. But Santa Claus is real for them, but
Yeah.
Santa Claus is not actually real.
Yeah, well, but Santa Claus does deliver their Christmas presents.
Well, yeah, but he's not real, though.
To that child, they are.
Is that 4-year-old capable enough to make a decision about what gender they are? And she's like, well, yeah, he just has a vivid imagination.
When I see a child who, believes in Santa Claus, and then let's say this is a boy and he says, I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who can't distinguish between fantasy and reality. So how could you take that as a reality?
I would say that as a pediatrician and as a parent, I would say how wonderful my 4-year-old and their imagination.
And it's like, so he can have a vivid imagination and believe that Santa Claus is real, and at the same time believe that he is a girl. I mean, what kind of sense does that make? Am I eating crazy pills, right? is this just the Matrix messing with me? I don't understand what is going on. When I watched this movie, it hurt my brain. It hurt my brain to have to sit there and listen to these people and the nonsensical ideas that they have.
Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
And then the fact that they could not even define what a woman was. Not one person gave a legitimate definition.
But men can get pregnant?
We're saying someone who was born as a woman but identifies as a man.
that a man?
Real man.
It's a real man.
Yeah.
So men can get pregnant. Ask that question. Can anyone tell me what a woman is?
You are not here for women. We ask you to leave.
What is that?
What is a woman?
What is a woman? A woman is someone who claims that as their identity. It could be many things to many people.
Problems with this left-wing gender ideology is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well,
Can you tell me what a woman is?
no, I can't.
Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
That describes what?
who identify as a woman.
What is that?
Some of it is, based on biology. Some of it is based on hormones. Some of it is based on what you wear and how you present yourself.
It's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
Can you define the word woman without using the word woman?
And it's actually kind of like, it's a curious question, but
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
For me, what I loved about this movie was that he didn't just go to doctors on the left, right? He didn't just go to gender affirming doctors. He went to other psychologists, well-renowned psychologists, and asked them their opinions. One was Dr. Miriam Grossman, and she lays it all out for you. Not only does she lay out what gender dysphoria is and the difference between sex and gender and all of that, but she basically tells you how all of this gender identity started.
When did that start? When was it decided that we need to start teaching kids about this stuff at such a young age?
So I'll answer that with one word: Kinsey. Kinsey was a social reformer. He wanted to rid society of Judeo-Christian values when it came to sexuality. And he worked very hard to do that, and I would say he succeeded.
Now, to me, when I didn't know all of that stuff, that was pretty crazy to find out that all of this stuff has been going on that long, right? And so, for me, this movie really was important because not only is it right now cultural, it impacts culture in our society in today's day and age, but it impacts my household personally. I'm a girl dad, all girls, raising a toddler right now, have a teenage daughter that we're raising as well. And so I can tell you, I was terrified of having to try to explain to my daughter why there is a naked male walking around the locker room of a spa.
Controversy at a health club in Koreatown over the issue of gender.
That's right. Video of spa goers complaining was posted on social media.
I just want to be clear with you. It's okay for a man to go into the women's section, show his penis around the other women, young little girls underage. Your spa, we spa, condone that. Is that what you're saying? Like I asked. It's so he can stay there. He can stay there. What sexual orientation? I see a dick.
Police identified the person involved as 52-year-old Darren Morager of Riverside County. Morager, who has been a registered sex offender since 2006, now faces 5 felony counts of indecent.
I thought that was appalling that they even allowed that to happen. They don't discriminate against anyone's gender identity or sexual orientation. And this happened in California, where a congressman is trying to basically amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to include gender identity and sexual preference.
The first member of Congress who's a member of the LGBT community and also a person of Asian descent. You're also a big proponent of the Equality Act.
Yes.
What is the Equality Act? If you were to just summarize it very briefly, I know it does a lot.
The most simplest way to talk about the Equality Act is that it simply amends the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity.
The problem is he couldn't answer any of the questions that Matt had for him and ended the interview very abruptly.
So, you know what? I think this interview is over.
Yeah.
I think this interview is over.
I just had one last question.
No, the interview's over.
We
Please
wanted
turn
to
off
know
cameras.
what is a woman?
Please turn off the cameras.
Excuse me. So we're going to end the interview. If you guys could please pack up and return the office exactly.
I just wanted to know.
Okay.
I came all this way to know what.
Thank you.
They're fair questions. I just wanted to know what is a woman.
And you're not going to find out.
And that, again, is a mainstay that we start to see over and over and over again in all of these situations. And we've seen all the videos from Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson who talk about this at length. And that's what I loved about this movie was you got to have Jordan Peterson in there.
There's no such thing as a gender-affirming therapist. That's a contradiction in terms.
Why?
Because you don't affirm if you're a therapist. It's not your business to affirm. You come to see me because there's something wrong. Maybe you come to see me because a destructive element of you is wreaking havoc in your life. I'm on the side of the part of you that wants to aim up, man. That's what I'm on the side of. Okay, now I don't know what that means in your case, but we're going to talk about it. Am I going to affirm what you think? No, it's not up to me to affirm it. You don't get a casual pat on the back from a therapist for your pre-existing axiomatic conclusions. That's not therapy. That's a rubber stamp.
This man is one of the most brilliant people I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. And I try to listen to his opinion on almost every single topic that I'm interested in because he's, like I said, he's one of the most brilliant men I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. So I really, really value his opinion on a number of subjects. And so, of course, you have to have Jordan Peterson in this discussion. And in brilliant Jordan Peterson fashion, he knocks it out of the park.
Biological sex, binary. It's been binary for like 100 million years, longer than that. Temperament is not binary, temperament or personality.
So it's gender. Temperament is gender?
Well, gender is not a good word because it's vague and it isn't measurable.
So do we need it? Why can't we just say temperament? What do we even need the word gender for?
Well, I don't need it.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that people who talk about the diversity in gender are actually talking about diversity in personality and temperament, but they don't know it. You can have a masculine temperament if you're a woman. Maybe 1 in 10 women have the average temperament of a man. And you can have feminine men temperamentally. And it's not that uncommon because the differences between men and women temperamentally aren't that great. There are masculine girls. There are feminine boys. What are we going to do about that? Carve them.
So this brings me to the darker side of this video. And that's when Matt gets into the negative effects of this ideology and what's being done to children. So the next person he interviews is this person named Scott. This person was a female who medically transitioned to a male, to appear like a male. But they flat out come out and say, I made myself look like a man, but I'm not a man.
I'm a biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male through synthetic hormones and surgery. I will never be a man. Is it transphobic for me to tell the truth?
This person, Scott, brings up a very good point. in this interview, and that is the money aspect of all of this.
Say, for the first time in history, a marginalized group has a huge dollar sign on the top of their head. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States promoting that.
What?
That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys at $70,000 a pop in a surgery that has a 67% complication rate. That will kill me from infection.
That a lot of people seem to not focus on. They are basically, for all intents and purposes, they are using children as lab rats to test out these different chemical combinations and these different kinds of surgeries to see what works and what doesn't. So that one day when they get it all perfected, someone would actually be able to do a full transition from male to female, and you would never ever be able to know. They'd actually be able to figure out a way to change your chromosomes to make you a female or a male, whichever way you wanted to transition. That's what they're basically working on right now. And that's what they're doing to these kids, right? But Big Pharma, right? And that's why they're going after kids and not adults, because Big Pharma's in on it. So if you can get a kid at 6 questioning his gender, and you keep reaffirming that that's okay and that he's right for questioning it, and then maybe it's because he's a girl, and by the time he's 12 and 13, he's on puberty blockers and taking estrogen because he wants to grow his hair out and grow boobs and you know, all of these things. And so then at 16, they have surgery. They come off the puberty blockers. They have surgery, and all these complications happen. By 25, there's a good chance they're severely depressed and suicidal because of it. Those are all the things they don't tell you, that you find out in this documentary. One of the things he says is that when, for each new trans patient, basically, it generates like $1.3 million to Big Pharma.
Child that they convince is transgender and in need of medical transition, it generates $1.3 million to pharma. And we're believing a pharmaceutical company, Loopring, hormone blockers, reversible, so they say. Well, the truth is that in 2003, Loopring was sued and deemed a criminal enterprise by the US government. They paid the most fine of any pharmaceutical company at that time, $874 million, wrote a check.
Is Loopring chemical castration?
Now, I don't know if that's true. They didn't actually show any numbers or data or anything like that, and I haven't researched all of it, but I trust the Daily Wire to not put anything in a documentary that wasn't factually true. So I'll take Matt Walsh's word for it that if he let it fly in the movie, then it has some truth to it, and more than likely accurate. So, but what I found kind of funny about the movie was Matt Walsh's wit, his humor. And there's a part where he goes to a women's rally. I guess it's some kind of abortion protest or something in DC or somewhere. And he keeps asking all these people, all these women, what is a woman? Can you define a woman for me? All I want to know is what is a woman? And they, holler at him, scream at him, tell him to leave. Because they can't answer the question. They're too afraid to answer the question. Because they know that if they answer the question, and somebody from the trans community sees their answer and doesn't like it, that they could lose their whole career. That's not how this society should work. And that is not how a marginalized group wins over the whole community, the whole society. Right? That's not how you win over your peers, by telling them they have to accept you no matter what. And if you don't, you're a bigot or transphobic. Like I said before, I've got nothing against you wanting to do whatever you want to do to you. Right? As long as you're an adult, I could care less. The minute you turn around and tell me I have to do it too, that's when I have a problem. You want to call yourself a he, she, a wolf, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. But when you tell me that I have to call you that, and that if I don't, I'm a bigot, you have to think that logically all the way to the end. And Matt makes a good point in one of the interviews. He says, "What if I told you that my adjectives," and I think he said this on Dr. Phil, as a matter of fact. He said, "What if I told you that my adjectives are handsome and brilliant? And those are the only two words you can ever use to describe me, because that's what I believe, that I'm handsome and brilliant. And it's my truth. And you can't deny me my truth. So from now on, you must say Hyde is handsome and brilliant every time you talk about me. And if you don't, you're a bigot." Right? That seems like a legitimate comparison. Like, that's a legitimate argument. If you want me to call you by she or he or they or them or Z or dumb shit, whatever you want me to call you, expect that I can do the same to you, and we'll expect the same from you, and do the same to you if you don't. Right? You do it to me, I do it to you. What's that saying? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And see, for a long time, that saying, my mom used to tell me that saying all the time. And I used to flip it on her, right? I'm like, no, I'm going to do to others how they do to me, right? I'm going to treat others how they treat me. I'm going to give them the opportunity to be good first. And if they are, then they'll get the good of me. If they're not, then, I'm going to unleash hell. But I've learned that putting good out into the world gets you good back. And so, one of the bigger issues for me that this movie touched on was the athletics part of it. Because, like I said, I'm raising two daughters. And while one isn't really into sports and all that, my youngest may be. And by the time she gets into competitive sports, there may not be female competitive sports at all anymore. Because there'll be so many trans athletes that females can't compete at all. And for those that say that the trans athletes that do have the advantage over the women are a minority in that group. So they're a minority in the minority, right? It's only a few of them that are actually really good at sports. The rest of them suck.
Let's go, girls.
The norm is that transgender youth don't win that much in sports games.
Alana McLaughlin was very appreciative for Provost to take this fight. I don't know how appreciative is now, but she got a couple punches in.
It is very much the exception when a transgender young person does win.
And the tap!
And it's because there's not really an advantage to being trans. Only a few people are going to lead the pack.
There are some slight differences, but does it translate to a competitive advantage? I think you'd be very hard-pressed to prove that.
If there was a big advantage to being transgender in sports, then we would see transgender women totally dominate.
And over the last half of the pool, nobody will touch Leah Thomas.
Man, I feel like...
Right? That is you covering. Trying to cover your ass over the fact that you're allowing biological males to wrestle, fight, and play sports against. And that's messed up. Right? What was that MMA fighter identified as trans or as a woman and then competed in the women's fighting division? Come on, what kind of punk are you? Right? I don't know you, but what kind of punk are you? You knew you couldn't hack it in the men's division, so you went to the women's division? It was like those two track runners in Connecticut that Walsh points out in this documentary. They were like middle of the pack. If you look at their times versus the boys in those track meets or whatever, they were middle of the pack, but they blew the girls out of the water. I wonder why there's won all the events and all that stuff, and it was like nobody sees this as a problem. The Leah Thomas thing, Penn State swimmer or whatever, nobody sees this as a problem. Well, fathers like me of daughters who may be in competitive sports, and that may be their only way into, college or whatever, which I doubt I'm even going to suggest my kids go to college the way they are now, especially with a professor like that Yahoo that Matt interviewed. But nevertheless, if they want to play in competitive sports, I'm going to let them play in competitive sports. I just want to know if they're playing against women and not men. Just like I want to know that when they go into the locker room at the end of the game or the end of practice, that there's not going to be a man in there or a young man in there exposing himself to my daughter. And that a school would allow something like that to happen. Lord, please don't let that happen to my kid. Because I will be begging the Lord for strength to hold me back. Because there's no way I would allow that. That is immoral and indecent. But, like I said, as a father to daughters, that is one of my biggest fears. Is how do I explain this to them when they come to me with questions? What is a woman? No. But in the end, this movie was fantastic, and I suggest you go watch it. Head on over to Daily Wire, subscribe, and check out a lot more of the great things they've got going on over there. But definitely watch What is a Woman? Because if you have kids, especially young girls, you are going to want to watch this because some of the things that these people espouse is scary. But since you've made it all the way to the end of the video, I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you've made it all the way here. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. Smash that like button. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video and the topic. I love to engage with my viewers, so feel free to fire away. Again, thank you for everything you guys are doing, and I will catch y'all later. Peace.